Welcome to Foxy News. I'm your host, Aaron Glidden, and this is my co-host, Madison Frazier.
On this episode of Talking Heads, we will be discussing minimum wage.
This is Jason Brobst. He's a professor of business and economics with a degree in epic savagery. He's the author of Bullying Your Teacher, Cap Edition. He supports the decreasing or abolishment of the minimum wage.
And this is Cristobal Jones. He supports increasing or upholding minimum wage.
And now, a word from our historian, Hugh.
I'd like to remind you that this program is in fact brought to you by multiple advertisers, which you will be seeing multiple of tonight. But our biggest advertiser is you there at home, looking at you, Mr. Peterson. Before we begin our wonderful program, I'm sure you're all excited to see, though, I'm legally required to note that the opinions stated here are not those of the program, Mr. Peterson, the Prattville High School Economics Education Program, the Prattville High School Economics Board, the Prattville High School Social Studies Board, Prattville High School, or myself. As well, both legally and for the sake of our grade, we are required to give a brief history on the topic. So, before I present the debate, let us dive into the history of the whole issue of minimum wage. The first national minimum wage law, at least the first modern incarnation of one, there were many in the medieval times, but I'd hardly count those, was passed in New Zealand in 1894. In America, the first law came with FDR's New Deal and was the Fair Labor Standards Act, which set a standard of around 25 cents or around $5 a day for many industries. These laws were all brought about by large-scale strikes and by the general demands of a larger and more active labor movement. Such laws were extended to all employers by the 1960s under the Johnson administration, and more specifically, his Great Society programs, which aimed to eradicate poverty. Since then, it has been changed, almost always going up in nominal value, but perhaps not enough to match inflation. It reached its top value in 1960 when it reached the price of $1.60, or what today would be a full $11. In real value, that is, in 2018 dollars, the value of the minimum wage steadily dropped since then, and many have argued that it should be raised to match for inflation.
Did you know that livestock production contributes more to global warming than all of the world's transportation combined? Now let me demonstrate veganism. Veganism is great because you don't have to spend money on the lawnmower service, and you cut down on fossil fuels, which contribute to global warming because you're not burning gas from a lawnmower.
Bottoms up.
Speaking of historical trends, there has yet to be much consensus on the effects of minimum wage despite over 70 years of evidence. The seeming consensus is that it raises unemployment, but even that is disputed and not yet proven. There's also little consensus on whether or not it has truly led to economic growth, on what effects it has on crime, what effects it has on income inequality, or really any effect the minimum wage has had. All these are still in dispute, and historians have yet to find any agreement. The lack of consensus is likely due to a mix of partisanship, as well as a real difficulty keeping down one variable in the complex world of the modern economy and modern economics in general. It should also be noted that this is a hot-button topic, even on the state level. Current federal law allows states much free space to decide the law. They can raise the wage as high as they choose, but the federally set minimum, that is, the law of the land after all, will always be $7.25. This means various states actually have no minimum wage laws, and if the federal laws were repealed, would have absolutely no minimum wage at all. Others have already joined in the $15 movement, and have raised their wages accordingly. There's much variance here, and to get a good idea, just Google state minimum wage laws and look at some of the maps. You'll quickly notice that many states have radically different policies from even their neighboring state. Now, thank you for listening to this quick interruption. I will yet again add that what you're about to see doesn't reflect my beliefs, Mr. Peterson's beliefs are really anyone's beliefs. But I'm going to go ahead and end this pseudo PBS NPR nonsense here and allow the true action to commence.
So Chris, why do you think we should raise the minimum wage?
I believe that the current minimum wage is already healthy for our economy as we see today. So it's only sensible to raise the minimum wage with the new space given by the high employment rates of today. The loss of hours will be made up by the raise of average pay among workers.
Okay, so you think that raising the minimum wage with the loss of hours is going to help the economy?
Although work hours reducing is inevitable, we can raise it up to $8 to $12 per hour, actually encounter an economic output increase. GDP per capita would increase with this small amount, and as we all know, GDP is the best indicator of the country's economy and standard of living.
I mean,
This is because people will have more money and overall for consuming and spending.
okay, so not only will it raise the unemployment, but it will also only balance out the good it does with regard to the wage, right? So it'll raise unemployment, which is at an all-time low right now, which should be celebrated instead of being trying to put back. But it's also counteracting the raise of the minimum wage with the hours reduced.
So Jason, I take it that you don't support raising minimum wage?
As one of my favorite economists once said, it does a young kid no good to know that a job will pay him $20 an hour if he can't manage to find a job that'll pay $20 an hour.
That quote is implying that people in a disadvantage at finding jobs are having more difficult time finding a job at a higher minimum wage than at the current